We have received confirmation that a calculated high-level operation designed to completely destabilize the nation was in the final stages of planning. The blueprint for this chaos involved a coordinated wave of targeted assassinations specifically aiming to wipe out key figures within both the civil administration and the military command structure. The primary objective of this bloodbath was the immediate neutralization of Comrade Captain Ibrahim Traore, with orders to execute him at point-blank range or to obliterate his private residence using high-grade explosives. That shocking audio you just heard comes directly from the Defense Minister of Burkina Faso, who has just gone public with explosive details regarding what can only be characterized as one of the most brazen and sinister assassination attempts we have witnessed in West African history in decades. We are talking about a conspiracy so intricate, so heavily bankrolled, and so inextricably linked to foreign interests that it rips the mask off the true face of neocolonialism in our modern era. Folks, I need you to pull up a chair and settle in for this one because this is critical. You need to pay close attention here, because what I am about to lay out for you is not just your run-of-the-mill headline. This is a bone-chilling revelation that pulls back the curtain on the shadowy syndicates and covert operators actively waging war against African sovereignty right here in the 21st century. According to the bombshell testimony provided by Minister Sana, these conspirators had a specific date circled on the calendar, January 3, 2026, at exactly 11 p.m. That was their designated 0 hour, the precise moment they intended to unleash absolute hellfire upon the people of Burkina Faso. Just stop and imagine the cold-blooded calculation it takes to schedule a catastrophe like that. Let's be very clear about one thing. These were not some amateur-hour radicals or weekend warriors. These were highly trained operatives, military professionals who swore a sacred oath to defend their flag, now twisted into traitors with nothing but murder on their minds. Their main target was undeniable. They were gunning for Captain Ibrahim Traore himself. The strategy was as brutal as it was efficient. The plan was to assassinate the head of state up close, looking him dead in the eye as they pulled the trigger, or to rig his home with explosives, blowing him and every single person in his vicinity to smithereens while they slept in their beds. But folks, hold on, because it gets darker. It gets significantly darker. This plot was never just about taking out one man. The hit list included a roster of top-tier military brass and civilian leaders. We are talking about the very architects who have been instrumental in driving Burkina Faso's revolutionary transformation forward. The goal was to decapitate the entire government leadership structure in a single night of synchronized horrific violence. Just try to wrap your head around that level of malevolence. Think about the mindset required to orchestrate the simultaneous execution of multiple patriots, men and women who have dedicated every waking moment of their lives to the liberation of their country. Now, this is the part where the plot exposes its true colors, not as an internal coup, but as an act of external aggression wearing a disguise. Minister Sana detailed that once the assassinations were complete, the conspirators had orders to immediately neutralize Burkina Faso's drone launch base. You have to ask yourself, why would plotters focused on a simple coup worry about drone capabilities? I will tell you exactly why, my friends. Because this was never just a coup d'etat. This was the opening salvo for a full-scale military invasion. Those drones represent the eyes and ears of Burkina Faso, the nation's ability to defend its territory, monitor terrorist insurgents, and project power across its sovereign skies. By taking that capability off the board, these traitors were essentially disarming the nation to roll out the red carpet for what Minister Sana described as the arrival of foreign forces for a ground operation. Foreign forces. Ground operation. Let those words ring in your ears. This was a blueprint for a military conquest of a sovereign African nation. And the most tragic part, it was being coordinated by Africans themselves, modern-day quislings in black skins selling out their own brothers and sisters for foreign cash and empty promises of power. Just visualize for a second, my brothers and sisters across the continent and throughout the diaspora. The sheer level of desperation, the depth of self-hatred, and the extent of corruption it takes to sign your name to such a scheme. Think about how willing these individuals were to betray everything, their oaths, their heritage, their ancestors, just to remove one single man from the equation. One man, Captain Ibrahim Traore, a young military officer who had the courage to stand up and say enough to foreign exploitation. A leader who put the interests of Africa above his own bank account. A president who prioritized national sovereignty over subservience to global powers. What does it tell you that they are willing to kill him? That they are willing to destroy an entire nation's leadership and invite foreign armies onto African soil? All of this just to stop his vision. It tells you that what he represents is the single greatest threat to the established neo-colonial order. It tells you that true African independence, real sovereignty, and actual control over our own resources and destiny are concepts that terrify the puppet masters so deeply that they are willing to burn down entire countries just to prevent them from taking root. Minister Sana, playing his cards close to the vest to protect ongoing investigations, dropped the name of only one principal conspirator. But let me tell you, it is a massive name. Lieutenant Colonel Paul Henri Sandaogo Damiba. That is right, that Damiba. The same man who positioned himself as a patriot when he ousted President Roch-Marc Christian Kabore back in January 2022. The very same man who looked the people in the eye and claimed he would restore security and stability to Burkina Faso. The same man who, after just 8 months of disastrous leadership and broken promises, proved he was never the savior he claimed to be. Let's rewind the tape to September 2022, the moment Captain Traoré stepped up to remove Paul-Henri Damiba from power. It had become undeniably obvious by that point that Damiba was either completely incompetent or worse, had zero intention of actually fighting for the sovereignty and best interests of the Burkinabe people. In a series of absolute bombshell revelations, dropped by Minister Sana, the former interim leader wasn't just a bystander. He has been identified as the primary architect behind this entire scheme. We are talking about the ringleader, the strategic mastermind, and the chief engineer orchestrating this whole sinister black op from the shadows. His fingerprints are allegedly all over every single aspect of the planning phase, from mapping out targeted assassination attempts and coordinating complex military strikes to establishing back-channel communications with foreign entities. He also served as the lead financial bundler, securing and moving massive amounts of cash to bankroll what is essentially a multi-million franc conspiracy designed to destabilize the nation. Beyond the money, he was reportedly deep in the recruitment game, handpicking both civilian and military assets, while vetting and enlisting a fifth column of turncoats from right inside Burkina Faso's own government institutions. So you have to ask yourself, where is this self-proclaimed patriot today? Where is the man who stood in military fatigues and swore an oath to protect and serve his country? Intelligence reports place him in Togo, where he is currently lying low, hiding out under the wing of political allies who subscribe to his agenda, or to be more precise, his total failure to envision a sovereign future for the African continent. He is finding sanctuary with specific geopolitical forces right now. These are groups that have a clear preference for puppet regimes, leaders they can control and manipulate, rather than dealing with strong, independent heads of state who actually stand their ground. Folks, if you look at the history books, this is a tale as old as time. In the saga of African geopolitics, foreign powers realized a long time ago that they do not need to send their own boots on the ground to get what they want. They have figured out that it is much cheaper and far more efficient to simply outsource the violence, finding locals willing to get their hands dirty and execute the mission for them. And when the operation goes south or these collaborators get burned, the handlers ensure they have an exit strategy, whisking them away to safe houses in neighboring nations and shielding them from prosecution so they can be reactivated for another coup down the road. Now let's shift gears and focus on the one thing that leaves an undeniable trail: the cold hard cash. There is an old saying in the investigative world that holds true everywhere, especially in African politics. If you want the unvarnished truth, you simply have to follow the money. Minister Sana did not mince words when he exposed the financial pipeline, stating categorically that the funding for this complex coup plot originated externally and explicitly, pointing the finger at the Ivory Coast as a major financial hub. Citing official intelligence dossiers, authorities tracked a specific finalized transaction of approximately 70 million CFA francs, which converts to roughly 125,000 US dollars that was intercepted and logged on the books. I need everyone to really pay attention to this part. So let's unpack why this specific detail changes the entire narrative. A sum like 70 million CFA francs does not just magically appear out of the ether without someone signing off on it. That capital moved through formal banking channels, crossing international jurisdictions from the Ivory Coast directly into the accounts of the coup plotters operating on the ground in Burkina Faso. What that tells us is that there is a digital footprint involving wire logs, bank records, and institutional fingerprints facilitating the bankrolling of a hit job against a sitting president. This raises the million-dollar question that demands an answer. Who exactly on the Ivorian side gave the green light or cleared the path for these funds to move? Are we looking at a few wealthy rogue actors operating independently, or does this go higher up the chain to state-level institutions? Even more critical is tracing the flow upstream. Where did that cash originate before it was laundered through the Ivory Coast? Bear in mind that $125,000 is just the single transaction they managed to catch. You have to wonder how much more capital was pumped through dark channels that the intelligence agencies either haven't found yet or are keeping classified for now. This serves as hard, undeniable evidence that foreign hands are actively meddling in the internal political mechanics of Burkina Faso. We are moving past the realm of internet rumors and conspiracy theories here. This is documented, verifiable proof. It confirms that there are powerful interests, both regionally and globally, who simply cannot tolerate the existence of a Burkina Faso that stands on its own 2 feet. They are terrified of a leadership style that puts the welfare of the citizens above foreign profit margins, a leader who chooses national sovereignty over subservience. They cannot abide someone who has the audacity to challenge the neo-colonial status quo that has kept the continent economically shackled long after the flags of independence were raised. Minister Sana has given his personal assurance to the public that the dragnet is still out and the investigation is operating at full throttle. Security services are working around the clock to identify and apprehend every single player involved in this sprawling treasonous network. He made it crystal clear that anyone caught up in this will have their day in court and will face the full weight of the law strictly according to the judicial statutes of Burkina Faso. This is a crucial distinction, folks, because it shows that even when facing a threat to the state's very existence, the administration is holding fast to the principles of due process and legal order. However, the minister did not just talk about arrests, he also issued a stern, necessary red alert to the general population. The message was simple: do not let yourselves be duped into becoming pawns in these destructive games. This advisory is critical right now, because the adversaries of national progress do not rely solely on guns and bombs to get their way. They operate through psychological warfare, mass manipulation, and weaponized social media bots, exploiting economic hardships and inflaming ethnic tensions to turn neighbors into enemies and tear the social fabric apart from the inside. There are likely people listening to this broadcast right now who might be starting to doubt, thinking to themselves, maybe the captain is pushing too hard, or perhaps we should play nice with the international community, or isn't there a compromise where everyone is happy? If that is you, I have 3 words for you: snap out of it. This latest hit job proves once and for all that there is no negotiation with neo-colonial forces. It is a zero-sum game. You either bow down and accept total submission, or you prepare to defend your life. The imperialist playbook only offers those 2 outcomes. Now, before we wrap up this segment, I want to take a moment to salute the men and women holding the line. A massive shout out to the volunteer fighters who have dedicated their lives to shielding our homeland from terror, and to the resilient patriotic citizens who are grinding day and night, refusing to give up, ensuring that this nation remains standing. Despite the constant barrage of threats, Burkina Faso is still standing tall, powered by a sheer unbreakable resilience and a spirit of sacrifice that simply refuses to quit. Make no mistake, this nation isn't going anywhere. They are digging in their heels, ready to face down every challenge and withstand the intense pressure with absolute resolve. We need to take a moment to send our deepest prayers for a speedy recovery to the wounded and honor the memory of the brave souls who paid the ultimate price in this fight for dignity. The government is doubling down on a solemn promise: these heroes will never be forgotten, and may the liberated soil of Burkina Faso hold them in eternal peace. This moment also calls for a major salute to the unsung heroes of our national security, our intelligence services, who are doing absolutely critical work behind the scenes. Because of their razor-sharp professionalism and vigilance, Burkina Faso has once again stopped a major plot to throw the country into chaos dead in its tracks. Hat tip to those agents, because we now know that on January 3rd, 2026, right around 2300 hours, a massive conspiracy was set to unfold. The blueprint for this attack was brutal. a coordinated series of targeted hits aimed at taking out key figures across both the civilian government and the military command structure. And the primary target on that hit list, none other than the head of state himself, Comrade Captain Ibrahim Traore, the man leading the charge for the nation's future. The plan was cold-blooded. They intended to eliminate him either at point-blank range or by rigging his private residence with explosives to ensure maximum destruction. But it didn't stop there. The second phase involved dismantling the drone base to cripple air support, paving the way for a full-scale ground invasion by foreign commando units. Now, regarding the players behind this curtain, we are keeping some cards close to the chest to protect the integrity of the ongoing investigation and catch every single accomplice. However, we are naming the ringleader right now. Former Lieutenant Colonel Paul-Henri Sandaogo Damiba is the man allegedly pulling the strings of this operation. His role was comprehensive. He was the architect, drafting the plans, the bagman, raising the dark money, and the recruiter signing up both civilians and soldiers to betray their country. Inside the barracks, the specific goal was to turn soldiers against their brothers, setting up rogue sleeper cells with clear orders to strike when the signal was given. But folks, we have got to zoom out and look at the bigger picture here, because on the African continent, absolutely nothing happens in a vacuum. For the last 3 years, President Ibrahim Traore has been steering the ship in Burkina Faso, and he has been navigating through some incredibly stormy waters. In that short window of time, he hasn't just tweaked the policy. He has completely rewritten the script on what African sovereignty looks like in the Sahel and across the globe. He is charting a bold new course focused on total independence and endogenous development, building a system that relies on its own strengths. We are talking about an economy built by the Burkinabe people, for the Burkinabe people keeping the wealth and resources right where they belong. This is a direct rejection of the old model where policies were dictated by foreign banks in distant capitals or by the ghosts of former colonial overlords. Traoré is operating with a strictly Pan-Africanist mindset, recognizing that you cannot free Burkina Faso without fighting for the liberation of the entire continent. This is a leader who has struck a chord with the streets, earning massive support not just at home, but resonating with hearts and minds all over Africa and the diaspora. From the bustling markets of Dakar to the skyscrapers of Johannesburg, from Accra to Nairobi, and even across the ocean in Harlem and London, people are watching. The name Ibrahim Traore has become the rallying cry for a fresh generation of African leadership that is finally saying enough is enough. They are refusing to bend the knee, refusing to cut backroom deals, and demanding nothing less than absolute respect and full sovereignty for their people. And let's be real, that is exactly why he is considered such a dangerous threat to the established global power structure. Remember, 1987, when Thomas Sankara was gunned down, it was because he proved a small landlocked nation could actually think for itself. He showed the world they could say no to the International Monetary Fund's debt traps, feed their own citizens, and stand tall without begging for handouts. Assassinating Sankara was a message written in blood to every other leader: do not dare to walk this path or else. And for nearly 4 decades, that message sank in deep, keeping an entire continent afraid to step out of line. Generations of African politicians learned to color inside the lines, making sure they kept the foreign powers happy to ensure their own survival. They were forced to put the profits of international corporations and foreign capital way ahead of the needs of their own suffering populations. But now the game has changed with this new guard, and Captain Ibrahim Traore is arguably the face of this defiant new era. He represents a generation that is taking those old red lines and erasing them, refusing to play by the rules set by their predecessors. As Minister Sana revealed, this isn't just a one-off event. This isn't the first time shadowy forces have tried to topple President Traore's administration. Brothers and sisters, I cannot stress this enough. You need to understand the gravity of what is happening on the ground. We are talking about multiple failed coup attempts, all of which were crushed thanks to the eagle eyes and competence of the Burkinabe intelligence community. Just think about the pressure cooker they are living in. This is a government under a 24/7 siege, constantly watching its back. They go to work every single day, knowing full well that there are powerful, well-funded machines dedicated to their total destruction. This is the steep price tag of real freedom in modern Africa. This is the backlash you get when you have the audacity to challenge the neo-colonial status quo. You don't just get a slap on the wrist with diplomatic letters or economic sanctions, they come for your head. You face hit squads, sophisticated coup plots, chaos campaigns, and suddenly terrorism seems to spike suspiciously right when you assert your independence. Look at the trend across the Sahel region. It is the same playbook everywhere. Any leader who puts sovereignty over submission gets a target on their back. Just look next door at Mali, where Colonel Assimi Goïta has had to dodge multiple attempts on his life just to keep his country free. General Abdourahmane Tiani didn't just rise to power in Niger by accident. He stepped in with a deliberate mandate to halt the nation's slide down a path of endless subservience to foreign powers. Let me be clear, folks, these events are not just random coincidences. What we are witnessing is a highly coordinated, systematic effort designed to crush any genuine movement toward African sovereignty before it can even take root. In his final address, Minister Sana pledged something absolutely vital to the integrity of the state total transparency. He went on the record to announce that the administration would be releasing video footage of several accomplices admitting to their crimes, bringing the evidence directly to the public square. That is exactly how you forge a bond of trust with your citizens, my brothers and sisters, by bringing the dark into the light. This is the ultimate power move to demonstrate to the world that this administration has absolutely nothing to hide and an entire nation's future to defend. We are living in an era of rampant disinformation where social media platforms are weaponized to engineer chaos and foreign intelligence agencies manufacture fake news to topple governments. In this climate, putting the raw evidence on the table is essential. The public deserves to look squarely at the faces of the individuals who are willing to pull the trigger and assassinate their own president. The people need to hear the details of the plot, in the traitor's own words, straight from the source, so there is no ambiguity about what was planned. We need the truth to be so undeniable and so unavoidable that no spin doctor can twist it. But understand this transparency serves a dual purpose. It acts as a severe warning to any other bad actors in the shadows who might be thinking about trying something similar. It says loud and clear, we will find you and we will expose you. You will be made to face justice, and your acts of betrayal will be documented in the history books for every future generation to remember. To my brothers and sisters watching across this great continent, and those in the diaspora around the globe, realize that this assassination plot against Captain Ibrahim Traore is not merely a local Burkinabe issue. This is a continental emergency. This is an African issue, and it is our issue. Because the target here isn't just one man or a single administration. It is a direct strike against the very idea that African nations have the right to govern themselves and control their own vast resources. It is an attack on the right to determine their own destinies without having to seek permission slips from former colonial masters or international financial institutions. If these forces manage to succeed in Burkina Faso, you can bet your bottom dollar they will try the exact same playbook in Mali, in Niger, in Guinea, and in any country where leaders dare to put their sovereignty first. That is precisely why we have to stand in absolute solidarity with the people of Burkina Faso. That is why we have a duty to amplify their truth to the world. That is why we must be relentless in exposing these shadowy conspiracies and shining a light on the foreign forces pulling the strings. The battle for African sovereignty is nowhere near the finish line. The machinery of neocolonialism is still alive, heavily funded, and deeply entrenched in the system. These entities will stop at nothing, resorting to political destabilization and even assassination just to maintain their stranglehold on our continent and our wealth. But this revelation stands as a powerful testament to the resilience of those who refuse to bow down, who refuse to sell out, and who refuse to accept anything less than total freedom for Africa and her children. Against all odds, Captain Ibrahim Traore is still standing. The conspiracy has been blown wide open, and the sharp vigilance of Burkina Faso security services has successfully protected the revolution once again. However, we cannot afford to get comfortable or complacent. We must stay on high alert and continue to throw our full support behind genuine Pan-African leadership wherever it emerges. And we must burn into our memories the old adage that the price of liberty is and always will be eternal vigilance. Africa is destined to be free, not because we ask for permission, but because of our sheer determination. Not by begging for scraps, but by building our own future. Not by making weak compromises, but by showing bold courage. And leaders like Ibrahim Traore, who embody that courage, must be protected, supported, and celebrated by everyone who believes in Africa's destiny. The revolution is marching forward. The struggle is intensifying by the day. And the only question left is, will we be ready?